Pixie, doing another video. So it's Christmas Eve and just finished up for the night. Done my evening care work. And there was some interesting stuff I was thinking about that, I don't know, it surfaces as I'm just talking about stuff. So the first thing really is about our species, and to get into that I'm going to have to talk about some other species. So I was doing some research into well, I just come across this video about crabs. It talked about why does everything evolve into a crab, and I thought, okay, that's strange. So I clicked on it and it talked about different crustaceans. It also talked about things like shrimps and so on, that the tails would reduce and then they'll turn into crabs. And so you've got a whole cluster of different things that have evolved into crabs and have been assumed to be a crab when genetically they're not quite a crab, but they appear to be like them. Which you think, well, that's weird. Why? How does that work? And I was thinking about maybe viruses would have the crossover, they would bring across genetic information. Also, if the kind of the body functions in a way that its DNA is a kind of receiver, sender-receiver type thing, and it's quite possible that it's picking up once a virus has gone into a cell, dropped this DNA load in there, and the DNA heals itself, because sometimes it gets damaged and it heals, cells heal themselves. DNA does have the ability to self-repair. RNA not so well. I think it's probably not at all. But what it does is it tends to use other systems, well, apart from pure plant, to regenerate more of itself, more RNA. And so when it replicates copies, failures do come out, but it's not a big issue because it just keeps replicating. But for the DNA, it will fill in the missing gaps and repair itself. So it's got the telomeres on the DNA, which is like little bits of gold or whatever they might be. They could be superconductor type minerals, structures, and it helps with the electrical side of it, going across the frequency going into the cell. The cell then can read itself and it transmits, and they're kind of like little microchips, which means they're probably being read by something else completely different, and this is where it gets into the quantum physics side of things. But I don't want to go too far that way. What I'm interested in is that there are species that will mimic other species and mirror them. They might be influenced by observation. It could be that their environment, their genes are more in tune with the environment than they realise. They talk about things like cuttlefish, who they can't see, but they're able to change their colour and match the environment around them. They said they're colourblind, but yet they're able to see that spectrum in their skin and adapt to that colour. And there's other things like chameleons and so on that have this ability of changing and matching their environment, but they do it with their skin. So at a more genetic level, cellular level, they can influence themselves. And so for the humans, we are a kind of a refined species, but we have too much in common with the ocean than we do with actually monkeys. And well, maybe some monkey DNA, but that could be from anything. We could have been eating monkeys for thousands of years, or maybe we ate a food source, and some of the genetics from the food source is getting broken down, is being read by our body, and it might be using some of this information, not just to heal itself, but to also further adapt itself. So it's taking in this binary information, and so as a species, if we've come from the ocean, so you've got apes and gorillas, and you've got monkeys, and they already have a strong connection with trees and climbing, which we don't have. Now we have a more we've got certain natural abilities of swimming. We have a slight webbed part of our fingers as well. I don't think monkeys have that. So between each of your fingers and your thumb, you've got a slight webbing, and it helps you to swim through water. Which wasn't something, well, it's not something they've got. However, they may have evolved further down the line themselves in some ways, and to be honest, they've evolved to blend in with their environment more. They may be environmentally dependent, and where we've become more codependent, we need our environment to function, because we can't function without it. There's certain things in it we need, but we're not held to one particular environment. We're able to adapt. We're nomadic. Why certain creatures, like certain apes and monkeys, they're all in a certain region. I mean, they might spread out further afield, but they certainly need certain resources. Like you get ones that are in a colder environment, and they'd be using volcanic areas as spas to keep warm and stuff, because they don't. I mean, they've found the benefit of it, but there's also issue that they're not really able to function so well in them kind of environments, so they've had to utilise what they can in the environment. Humans, well, we've done a bit of that, but we had to put on clothes, but we don't have to have clothes as well, because we've got quite a unique system in our bodies, so we don't have to have loads of fur or hair. And if we come directly from an ape, we would probably have kept all that fur and hair. They are physically a lot more stronger primates. I mean, I would say that we're kind of a pseudo-primate. They're not the primitive mates of us. They're not our origin species. I think it's a case of that we've adapted to be like them, to maximise our benefits in our environment, to utilise tools, and so we've taken that information. We've probably always had hands, and it's like them as a creature, an ape. They've always had a certain amount of digits, and you find these digits on most things. And it's, I mean, people might argue, well, there was a point where it split off, or there may be a point where we just kind of robbed them for their genetic material. And I say, there may be other ways to get information from something. There's also factors of like quantum physics and what we know about that, and what I call is like quantum telepathy, that we're able to transmit information. Now, something else I thought about as well, somebody said about the death gene. So basically, creatures have developed the ability that they know when they're going to die, and they're able to switch off. Like if you're in severe pain, or I mean, you sometimes see it on these animal documentaries. They're fighting a lion or something, and then they're just sort of losing the will to live, and then they just go into a trance, and then they just get devoured. And they're not screaming outwards; they're just giving up. The body's totally shut down. It's quite interesting how that's happened. And you can't develop it because you die, basically. Once you're dead, how would you develop it? But however, if you've got a kind of quantum connection to a species as a group, you have the ability to take mistakes and failures, learn from them, and create something from them. It's like having clones, and the information can be uploaded. And maybe it was. I mean, there was times when there was cannibalism as well. So, and there's also selective breeding. So, where certain species adapt, they might take certain species to create that. And kind of in the dark side of MGTOW, men used to enforce their own version of that, and they would go around raping. So, if they've got a vulnerable group that's on their own, this is why women hang in groups, because otherwise they wouldn't be able to have that control they've got over their their breeding of stocks, because certain men, so you might have, that's why you've got leaders, you've got alpha males, they decide the outcome, and alpha females, and how that creates the structure for our herd, because there were social problems that needed solving. And so the phenotypes of people's genetics decide personality traits, because you can't all be alphas. And if you're all like beta females, they just get bloody flooded by loads of alphas. The alphas will breed with them, and then they start fighting each other for them. Or they might fight over one particular female more than they would the others. They're not happy for second best, and they also have maybe set up for a shorter lifespan. They're in a more dangerous position. They're supposed to do more riskier things. They're pushing themselves to the limits to gain genetic advantage by evolving, while the other ones evolve differently. They're evolving intellectually. They're observing the behaviour and mistakes of the alphas, and they're trying to figure out the best way around that system. So you get a mixture of them. So you might get one and say, well, I can take the alpha's children, and this is where the female's quite clever. So if you pick an alpha, you have an alpha's child, he has, say, natural athletic abilities and other strengths that might have come with it. So if we think about what I mentioned, the model of using evolution, but also using so I think maybe we just basically underestimate empathy, these mirror neurons. So you set it up so you got an alpha child, they become a stepchild of a beta male, and so they have to develop new skill traits that the beta has, like, you know, he's able to cook, he's able to do other things that maybe the others wouldn't do. He might have to be able to figure out new weapons, because the alpha might use brute force, while he might use technical advantage like traps. Like you trap the stronger beast, whatever, and then you would wait until it's weakened and then attack it. You just use your intellect differently. I mean, the alpha's advantage is he gets the job done quickly and it's effective, but it might not be look at long-term issues. You know, a bit like if you attack a part of a herd and there's retaliations because you're attacking a family group. You might not be thinking about, well, yeah, you might be able to take out one of them, but you can't take out his brothers or whatever, you know. There might be other issues that come about it. And I mean, there's hierarchy also with females that will be different to that. I mean, some of them fight amongst each other, some of them set each other up. They've learned that more of a beta way is that if they work as a group, they're much more effective. That's the same against an alpha. If you can get enough betas that have learned of how to function against an alpha, they could take him down by working as a group. It could be that he's become defective and he's become a sort of self-destructive narcissist or whatever, you know, maybe started killing these females. He's lost it. You need to get rid of him. Women and alpha women are saying, look, I'll go with you, get rid of this arsehole or whatever. We've already got a few alpha kids, we don't need them. So, but raising an alpha under a beta rulership, eventually he will take over. And sometimes you see it. The mums have a very close relationship with their sons, and the stepdad's treated like he's a second-rate person because he's nurtured the child and given him everything to be more refined. And them qualities are imprinted in that child, and then that child's going to take that forth. And then maybe the child sees a bit of a mixture. He sees himself as the better version of the father, the stepfather, but also understands that he comes from a different background. Which kind of gives him a different kind of outlook. There may be a different situation. Now, the problem if you've got beta male and alpha takes over, he might be used as a kind of assistant to the alpha. He won't be able to overtake the rule of that alpha. Maybe that alpha's older as well. So there's other kind of dynamics to look at. Issues when you've got maybe females and alphas. I mean, he might start with the mum and move on to the daughter. He didn't necessarily have the same morals as the beta male. The beta might be reversed. Maybe the beta's dysfunctional some way, and she's got an alpha female, and she's younger and more immature, and it might set him up to be in a better position. So he thinks, well, if I can form a relationship with her, that's fine. And he uses experience to help her. But what happens is she'll outgrow him. I mean, it might be a kind of functional relationship. It doesn't necessarily be a dark, manipulative one. So there's kind of dynamics, social dynamics, but the social element has become a part of the genetic structure as well, psychological as well. I need to look a certain way. I need to function a certain way. You know, diets influenced us. And selective, like we mentioned about selective breeding, and then also we got other ways that people would, let's say, enforced ways of forcing the breeding in the past, and how that changed. That's why women like to be in groups. They feel safer in groups. It's quite hard to because a man can only focus on one target at a time. So if he's trying to subdue someone so he can, I don't know, forcibly make her pregnant, basically. If he's got a lot of other females around her, that's not possible. They'll probably attack him from behind as he's trying to do whatever, club him over the edge with something, or throw rocks at him, or whatever they need to do, functionally to get him out of the way, because they don't want him to be a part of their group or whatever. They just see him, as a kind of predatory male. However, if he's attractive and he's got other traits, maybe some different, maybe they come onto him and so on. So it's a whole mixture in a more primitive society. So I think human traits. Okay, so we've looked at apes. I mean, you've got a gorilla; it's about 8 times stronger than a human. You've got a chimpanzee; it's probably about 4 to 5 times stronger than a human. Monkeys are not going to be strong because of the size. However, they're going to be quite strong. They're going to be strong for their size. So if you had something of equal size to it, I mean, they're going to be naturally stronger than a child, than a baby. They can pull a baby around. They most likely tease them. They're more agile, but they hang around with one arm and do things. They can be quite nasty, vicious biters as well. But we don't have. I mean, we don't have the fangs like any of our primates. We don't have the increased strength. They do have different eyesight, ocular vision. We're able to track movement and speed and other things a bit different. It could be that their eyesight, the chromium spectrum is a bit different as well. So they might have sensitive eyes to sort of like looking for fruits and things. Bright colours might be quite vivid to them, but they might not be able to tell the difference between slight texture changes. I mean, cats won't really. I mean, if you've got some other species, but they've got excellent night vision as a result. And there's other things like sense of smell in herds. There's ape psychology. I mean, they're not going to try to communicate with you, but if you went to something like a dolphin would probably try to have a chat with you. Different body language. I mean, they do instigate certain behaviour if they accept you as a group. I mean, more of a socially intelligent animal. This is from domestication, and also we want to talk about mirror neurons, is cats. Cats have got a really high IQ when it comes socially. They're able to figure things out. I mean, I've had driving along, the cat's been in the road where the car is. I've slowed down and it's read me that I've let it go. So it's walked across the road. I could have run it over, but you know, it's basically changed its behaviour pattern. I mean, dogs are fairly smart as well. They read other things. I mean, they might pick up on certain smells about people, emotional states. But they're already herd mentality. A cat's kind of hybrid. It doesn't really need to be in a group, but sometimes it likes company. It's a mixture. It likes social engagement, but it is also in competition with its other felines. So it's hard to sort of engage and form a sort of bond, like, and not sort of related. But yeah, again, most of that comes from, like I mentioned, the mirror neuron side of it, which is a genetic trait. think if there was anything else I wanted to say, but yeah, that's what I'm going to do research, because I mean Lloyd Pye had a lot of stuff to do with how different, how alien the species, how it could be altered and interfered with. But apes and monkeys are not, they're not evolving in the same parallels as humans. We're talking about chimpanzees like humans in the Stone Age, and in reality, no, they're not. We probably were just as smart as we are now. We just don't have enough fossils to prove it. There was just different types of humans out there, and the crap ones died. That's what happened. Here's the bloody pool. Pool of water. And the exciting thing about being a fake creature, evolving along the same pathway and not being related to things, is that means this rule applies for the whole universe. Anyway, it's been sign off. Let's be just